You know, devoting yourself to your craft is often a thankless job. The life of an artist can be grueling. The filmmaker who suffers from censorship, or the painter whose paintings are despised by their community. I think we all have a story to tell, but few dare to dedicate their entire lives to sharing it. What if you did, and your story just wasn't that good?
Every moment spent with this book is one you'll wish you had back. Absolutely terrible.
I got this book for free. Now I know why.
Absolutely hated
I've tortured myself through some terrible books, but this one got me.
This book was self-indulgent dribble.
I hate it.
It was interesting enough for me to actually finish, but I disliked most of the characters and felt no sympathy for their story.
I gave up reading. Dislike the main character and his girlfriend was so weak it was gross. Don't read this book.
In the fall of 1967, 19-year-old philosophy student Richard Shapiro was hiding from the cold in the Berkeley College Library. An aspiring novelist and avid LSD user, Shapiro was perusing the shelves, looking for something to help him pass the time before heading home. It was then that something caught his eye. A thin volume, unlike the worn books and dry tomes that surrounded him. He had stumbled upon a copy of an old hunting magazine, The Alaska Sportsman. When he turned a page, what he saw took a hold of his life. Whether it was the drugs or a legitimate higher calling, he had always known there was a greater truth to the world, a greater purpose for him to fulfill. It was only now, in the dark halls of this library, that he finally found the voice to express that purpose. He had finally found his muse.
I saw a picture of a white ram with golden horns standing on a mountain precipice with high peaks behind him, glaciers on one side and rivers and green valleys on the other. The ram's eyes, like his horns, were golden. In a moment, my imaginary self-realization found a focus.
He got to work. This waking dream so shaking young Shapiro to his very core that he would spend the next 50 years of his life writing, rewriting, self-editing, and eventually self-publishing his magnum opus. A novel called Wild Animus.
I got this book for free. It sucks. It tells the story of an avid LSD user and aspiring novelist who stumbles upon a copy of a magazine called The Alaska Sportsman, which sends him on a journey to complete his new novel, Wild Animus. Sound familiar? The only difference between this book and the author's actual life is that at the end of this, the main character is chased into an active volcano by a pack of wolf women. About a year ago, 4 free copies were given to me by an uncomfortably pushy woman with a suitcase filled with even more copies of Wild Animus. She said they had truckloads. I took it home and tried to read it, but I found it to be poorly written and, perhaps worse, just boring. The smoke thinned. Through his smeared vision, Sam saw another hand appear, brushing his own. It hung before him like a flesh-colored bird lost in a cloud. 3 rams sprang across the eyepiece, horns half-curl, full curl, and 3/4, white as snow, necks stiff, balancing the golden coils as they leaped. They were every bit the archetype of grace and command that he'd imagined. What a blessing to the earth, he thought, that creatures like this moved upon it. Lindy smiled, pure as a child, and brought her face closer, seeking a kiss. Their lips touched, his tongue raising hers, the budded surface like gravel. I put it down, stopped thinking about it, but in the years since I've been seeing it everywhere, from the public library to restaurants in London, in the background of YouTube videos, or even like in my Facebook ads. It started to feel like I was being followed or something, so we did a little bit of research and found some pretty crazy stuff. So this guy on Reddit is saying Wild Animus, a fetid adjective bomb that was handed out for free at several colleges and book fairs. An act I feel to be a form of assault. Right? And So we've got people handing the book out at festivals, at book fairs. So this is a woman dressed as a wolf handing out a paperback copy. You've got obviously clearly very desperate for people to take one, please. We'll pay you. In Adelaide, Australia in 2007, it was reported that wolf women were harassing male passers-by, snarling and clawing and dancing in the streets, and I didn't actually believe it until I saw the footage for myself. In 2010, Yale University shut down for a day due to a bomb scare. The bomb diffuser robot shows up, diffuses the mysterious package left on campus, only to reveal that it was a box filled with copies of Wild Animus. In fact, thousands of people around the world have reported the exact same kind of thing happening to them. In Chicago, Barcelona, London, Paris, these demonstrations have been put on. Thousands of copies of the book have been handed out, and it's all being self-funded by the author, the mysterious Rich Shapiro. People have reported copies of the book showing up on their front porch, packaged with smoked fish and a CD that Shapiro intended to be listened to alongside the book.
Rock back on my belly, smoke swirling. Limbs dig, planted stiff, neck straining, feeling a weight shift, a pressure above my eyes lift.
To what end? We obviously had to get into contact with him. We started out small, responding to bad reviews people had left online, or emailing the reviewers if we could. There were loads of blog posts of people who tried and failed to get into contact with Shapiro, and ironically, we failed to get into contact with any of them. After weeks, we finally managed to find our first big break. This Wild Animus Past Projects AI Productions. AI Productions was asked to arrange a 3-month tour around the... Okay, so these are the guys... So these are the guys who he's hired to dress up in the costumes, put on these dance performances. I wonder if they... Yeah.
Hello?
Hi, is this David?
Yes, hello.
Hi, David. My name is Henry. I'm calling regarding the marketing strategy you guys did for a book called Wild Animus. I believe you worked with a man named Rich Shapiro.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
It's a blast from the past, oh my god.
Yeah, we're basically, we're doing a documentary sort of tracking the marketing strategy and the distribution he sort of employed to advertise the book.
Sorry, who are you working for?
I knew as soon as he'd asked that question that we weren't going to get any further, and as much as I waffled on and on about who we were and sort of what our angle was, I knew it wasn't doing any good. So we hung up, and I sent him an email, and another email, and another email, but didn't really get anywhere. We made plans to meet up once, and he never followed through. Just like that, as soon as it started, our only lead, was cold, was dead. And we tried and we tried and we tried. We looked everywhere, continued emailing people, continued messaging people, and nobody would get back to us. I started to go a little bit insane. Email David. Check up on David. Check LinkedIn again. Have I received any new emails? Make sure you check your emails. Maybe we're going about this the wrong way. What haven't we done? What haven't we done yet? What am I missing? What are we missing? Tried to contact Google. Just go back to Google. Why won't anybody talk to us about this book?
We kept trying, but we never managed to get into contact with anybody. And I suppose you're probably asking yourself what the point is, right? What's so special about this book? And it might be disappointing, but ultimately the answer is nothing. I mean, it's poorly written, sure, but so is the Da Vinci Code. Wild Animus itself is a very immediate and very obvious metaphor for Rich Shapiro's life. His constant pushing, his publicity stunts, and mysterious persona are all an egomaniacal attempt at getting people to hear his story. Not a story he's written, I mean his life story. I think there's something inside all of us that compels us to share our experiences with others. Children finger-painting portraits of their families and aspiring novelists are both really seeking the same thing, connection. But by pulling the curtains on his public life and refusing to do any interviews, Shapiro has made it clear that connection isn't what he wants. And by doing so, he's given off the impression that he somehow thinks he's better than us, which makes it so much easier to make fun of something as self-serious and unironic as Wild Animus. I mean, Rich is lucky. Unlike most of us, he had enough money to literally shove his book in our faces, forcing us to confront it and react to it. He spent at least $1 million of his own dollars self-funding this entire thing, making us talk about his book, and ironically, the most interesting thing to talk about is anything but that. Everything about Wild Animus is intriguing except Wild Animus. I think this is the major problem with the book. Worse than being art for art's sake, it's art for the artist's sake. It's vapid, it's structureless, and it's completely self-serving. But at the end of the day, I read it, thousands have, and you're listening to me go on about it now. And as much as I can tell you that it's terrible, that it's poorly written, or that it's impossible to empathize with any of the characters, I bet there's still some part of you that wants to read it. And who knows why? You know, sometimes we intentionally seek out and enjoy art that we know is bad because it selfishly makes us feel better about ourselves. And if Wild Animus can do that, then maybe that makes it worth something. Stop! Do a new take. Woo!
That's good.
Woo!
We're ready.
I'm gonna get a coffee.
But keep going. Your eye line this way.
Yeah.